So, talk of the town is that 2024 really could be shaping up to be the year of Shadow. So it sure would be a shame if he were the croak by the end of it. At the time of recording, the Sonic Movie 3 is slated for release around the end of this year, and going off the introduction of the Space Colony arc, Robotnik's grandfather, and Shadow himself at the end of the last film, I think it's safe to say that the story of Sonic Movie 3 will be influenced by the events of Sonic Adventure 2. I couldn't tell you how much this excites me. For me, Sonic Adventure 2's story, awkward line delivery, music drowns dialogue, poor lip syncing, and downright goofiness aside, is to this day one of Sonic's most epic adventures. So, I can only imagine the scale of it being on the big screen. The high stakes, memorable and memeable moments make up for its flaws for me, and I consider Sonic Adventure 2 to be one of the most ambitious and intriguing stories the series has ever told. Shadow, of course, being a huge factor in why that is. His story and arc is one of mystery, loss, tragedy, misconception, and self-discovery. It's a touching tale that gripped me as a kid, and I'm sure it's a huge part of why Shadow is as beloved as he is. So beloved, in fact, that they couldn't keep him dead after the events of Sonic Adventure 2. Wait. So if you know, then you know, spoilers if you don't, I guess. At the end of Sonic Adventure 2, upon defeating the final boss, Sonic and Shadow set out to use Chaos Control to warp the Space Colony arc away from the Earth, to prevent its collision. During this, Shadow sacrifices himself because, I'm actually not sure why a sacrifice was even needed, but Shadow is the one that makes it, and is left hurtling toward the Earth as a result, as he dedicates his final words in the game to Maria, having fulfilled his promise to her. Sonic returns, bearing the bad news, and with these words,
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
We are to believe that Shadow is gone. I think it's the first ending in a Sonic game that really makes you sit there and go, damn. And that stuck with people. I'm sure it has the ability to do that again tenfold on the big screen as well, assuming that the ending will be adapted in the movie as it is. There's a question that's been on my mind pretty much ever since the confirmation of Shadow in the Sonic movie universe. Do he live or do he die? If you're aware of Shadow's death in SA2, which, come on, then you're likely aware of how it didn't last long. At all. Apparently, there was a huge demand for Shadow's return, and in just one game, he cemented himself as a fan favorite, and many thought it'd be a shame for him to be a one-and-done deal. This demand was apparently massive enough to get the folks at Sega and Sonic Team to cave, and thus, Shadow would make his return! Very unceremoniously in the next game. Shadow would reappear in Sonic Heroes in a manner that I really can't help but think was poorly done. The thing about Sonic Heroes is that it was Sonic's first foray into third-party consoles, and would therefore be marketed toward an entirely new audience who more than likely have not followed along with the series' lore and events. There would be many newcomers whose first game would end up being Sonic Heroes. Those poor souls. But with Sonic Team wanting it to be something of a follow-up to the events of SA2, they were faced with a really difficult task of crafting a game that would appeal to both a new audience as well as the pre-established one. As you could probably imagine, this did not bode well for Shadow's return. In Sonic Heroes, Shadow's return is explained like so. Shadow fell to Earth in his super form, which supposedly protected him from the impact of the fall, which is why he didn't flat out go splat. However, the impact was still enough to completely wipe his memory. Apparently, Rouge breaks into one of Eggman's headquarters or something in search of treasure, and there she finds Shadow. So it's insinuated that either Eggman found Shadow after the events of SA2 and encapsulated him here for whatever reason, or he started work on a Shadow copycat, and this is not the original we grew to know in SA2. Sonic Heroes sets out to address this mystery to no avail, really. What's worse is that everyone who knew Shadow in SA2 treats his return like some natural occurrence they expected to happen. They react to Shadow's return the same way you'd react to a friend from high school you haven't seen in a while. No one helps answer his questions or tries to help him with his existential crisis in any meaningful way. He even travels with Rouge in this game, who he worked with throughout the majority of SA2. Who could have easily filled him in or jogged his memory or something, but she doesn't. No one can thoroughly acknowledge the events of SA2 because that would run the risk of isolating the series' newcomers, and as a result, Shadow in Sonic Heroes is handled very incoherently. Guess we'll just chalk that up as another thing Sonic Heroes just couldn't get right. But the demand was answered and Shadow is back. The feelings on that nowadays vary depending on who you ask. Some would even tell you that Shadow should have stayed dead, as his character has been completely butchered and misunderstood since. It's been made pretty clear that Sonic Team didn't, and debatably still don't, know how to handle the character after the events of SA2, and maybe they were right in their initial decision to have him be a one-and-done type deal. It really makes me wonder how Shadow will be handled differently in the films, as it has the potential to be both better and worse than in the games. I personally can't decide which I'd prefer to be the better outcome. Part of me would love to feel the emotional gut punch that is Shadow's sacrifice all over again, but another part of me dreads the thought of history repeating itself, so you know what? I'm just gonna get comfortable sitting on the fence off this one until the movie is out. But what are your thoughts? Should Shadow stay or should he go? I'd really like to discuss this because I'm curious about what others have to say on the matter. Well, I'll see you in the comments then, hopefully. Miguel signing off. But if I hear a lick of Live and Learn anywhere in the film, I'm bursting into tears. Not kidding.